welcome back to the IDCCST Course Key Points, which is a home study that I'm running here. And today we'll be covering Step 1, Lesson 2, which is about God's focus on the fruits of iniquity. So the first key point, we get a basic definition of what the fruits of iniquity are, which is basically our fallen nature, or human nature as we call it. When we usually when someone does something that's against morals or against social norms, then we say, oh, it's just human nature, like when they swear, maybe, or maybe when we eat too much, or the wars that happen in the world, and we blame it on human nature. Okay, even climate change, we're just blaming it on our nature. And this is because we are identifying with the fruits of iniquity that Satan sowed in the soul. And these have a tremendous influence over our desire for change. So in Lesson 2, we are learning, Apostle Eric is teaching us how not to let these fruits get in the way of our repentance, or of coming into covenant with God. Because or even when you're in covenant, we're not letting them get in the way of our labor at the altar of Christ, because Satan will suggest that you need to change this or that before you commit to God's way of salvation. So he'll bring to the forefront the barriers, like, oh no, you have to sort out this relationship before you can come into covenant with God, or you have to stop smoking first before God can accept you in his covenant. So these are usually excused as excuses in the false religious system, but there are actually Satan's promises that if we do these, if we get rid of this or that, or these barriers, then we'll be prepared, we'll be ready, and God will accept us, or God will be pleased or God will be pleased and accept us into covenant with Him. And this is obviously not true, because that's the nature of Satan's promises. They are based on a lie. So Satan makes you focus on the things that separate you from God, so that you can delay your coming into covenant with God, so that grace can diminish. But we need to focus on the things that join us to God, okay, so that we can begin our walk with God in covenant faith. Okay, and then the second key point has to do with another angle of understanding the fruits of iniquity, which speaks of them as the condition of the soul because of Satan's sowing of false knowledge in the heart. So in Galatians 5 verse 19 to 21, we read about the fruits, the works of the flesh, the fruits of iniquity, which are a crop produced in the heart as a result of Satan's sowing of false knowledge. So what happens is that Satan approaches us with his suggestions to the mind through the window of the imagination. So when we talk about the imagination, we are really talking about daydreaming, and not really our creativity. So Satan sows his suggestions of false knowledge through the window of imagination, which we build with, and then it takes roots in the heart, okay, to produce an idol and a crop of iniquity, which affects the way we view God, life, ourselves, and the world. Okay, it distorts our thought patterns about these things, and even how we understand what faith is, or what righteousness is, or what justification is, or even what grace is. It distorts our perspective of these things and our understanding of these things. And so salvation is really about the washing, the daily washing, cleansing, and healing of the soul, and the bearing of new fruit, which are the fruits of the Spirit. Okay, so covenant is about the regeneration of the soul, through which the Lord salvages the soul of these fruits of iniquity and creates new life in the soul, which is the fruits of the Spirit. Okay, and then the third key point is another angle I've looking at the fruits of iniquity, which are described as the deep wounds of the soul. So before we come into covenant, we are in the system of sin. So sin is described as a system of contrariness to God that Satan governs, oversees, and inspires through seducing spirits to sow his own darkness in the soul. So in that system, that's when we bear the fruits of iniquity, the sins of the flesh, because we're using Satan's knowledge and his tools, and he oversees the corruption of the soul through the fruits of the Spirit. So Apostle Eric likes to use this analogy that before covenant, the soul is like a house, and before covenant, the house was on fire, and then in covenant, the Spirit puts out the fire and then starts doing the work of restoration, the work of regeneration in each cavern of the soul. And these are like the corruption is like the deep wounds of the soul, and the Spirit is healing them, and through as we touch the tools of the covenant. And this is really what the gospel is about. And through this restoration and regeneration, we gain the mind of Christ, and we see things from God's perspective.
You can purchase from Amazon Chief Apostle Dr. Eric von Andersik's IDCCST course to study the doctrine of Christ, which was delivered by the first century apostles to the early church.